If you are manifesting someone or something into your life right now, it is guaranteed that at some point you are going to take an action in this 3D physical reality that is going to be aligned with you physically receiving that someone or something. That action you take in the 3D, that is called inspired action. And today in this video, we're going to talk about inspired action. We're going to talk about what it is and what it isn't, but most importantly, I want to give you some tools that are going to help you to decipher within yourself if you are taking correct inspired action towards your manifestation, or if you're actually taking action that's thwarting your efforts. It's actually probably keeping your manifestation away. So we're going to make it clear what the difference is today, and you're going to know what you're really doing after this video. If you are new to my channel, maybe this is the first video of mine that you've seen, I want to introduce myself. My name is Genevieve and I am a manifestation coach. You know, what I try to do on this channel is break down the nuances, the paradoxes, the psychological implications of manifestation so that you get a really well-rounded knowledge to help you embody the real having of your manifestations. You can actually have it. I'm not a coach that keeps things superficial. I want to go in depth with you so that you really understand and can really embody. So if you like my style of talking about manifestation, coaching you, there are lots of different ways that you can work with me. I have courses down below that you can start right now if you want to. You can also book a one-on-one session with me if you would like. You can also join the membership portion of this channel. The platinum tier, the top tier, gets to do a group monthly call with me, so that's fun. So check out all the links below if you want to work with me deeper, or you can just look at, there's like over 100, I think, videos now on this channel. So there's a lot of free information here, so keep going deep in the videos here. Okay, so now we need to talk about inspired action here. So as I said before, and it might have surprised you, but you are literally guaranteed to at some point take a physical 3D action towards your manifestation. And a lot of you are like, no, I'm supposed to just sit and embody the wish fulfilled and everything just comes to me. Well, yes and no. When you're really in the having of your manifestation, it's true that there's nothing to do. That's one thing. But what a lot of you are doing is you're using that, oh, I just don't do anything. I just sit here and embody the wish fulfilled and then it just magically happens to me. You're using that as a way to avoid reality. You're using that idea as a way to actually check out of reality, to not take any action because action for a lot of you scares the fuck out of you, excuse my French. But a lot of you are terrified of getting your manifestation. A lot of you are terrified of participating in your manifestation. Again, I know I'm calling a lot of you out, but you need to hear it. So that's why a lot of you, when you hear the, oh, just lean back and just let your manifestation come to you, you've been using that idea as a way to avoid reality. But remember, we manifestors are not avoiding reality. We're not using the idea of our manifestation as a way to escape reality. We are creating reality. That means that we are being present in the 3D physical world. We are taking appropriate action in the 3D physical world when it is called upon us to do so. We are not just like, oh, I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to hide in my room. It's just going to come to me. You can't use the energy component, as I said, because it is true. The energy component of having this is accepting that it's done. But there's two things coexisting as we're manifesting, and that is that you are in an energy, but you're also accepting that the 3D reality is a little bit behind you. And that means that you're holding one energy, but you're also participating in another dimension, the 3D dimension, in a present, active, patient way until it catches up and matches this in here. Okay, with that said, so when I say that you are guaranteed to take some sort of action at some point towards the physical fulfillment of your manifestation, what do I mean by that? I don't mean that you need to go out and like make something happen. That's not at all what I mean. As I alluded to earlier, often real inspired action is an action that you just naturally take without even knowing maybe that it's aligned to you getting your manifestation. Like a cliche example that I think I used in an old video is, let's say you just have this random urge to go to your local mall one day, and you just like have this urge like, oh my God, I just really want to go to the mall today. And you go to the mall and boom, you had no idea you were going to bump into your specific person that you're manifesting at the mall. So that's an example of inspired action, and that you just felt this intuitive knowing, like, I need to go to the mall today. I don't know why, but it just feels like I got to be there. So you follow that intuitive urge, you go there, and then boom, you see that person and it's like, oh, I guess that was inspired action. So that's passive inspired action, and that's pretty common, where you're just living your life not even knowing that you're going to be colliding in the 3D in a pleasant way with something that's about your manifestation. But another less passive version of inspired action, and this is one that might trigger a lot of you when it comes to manifesting specific people, is sometimes there is, again, this intuitive knowing in you, and this is going to be so different for all of you depending on your circumstances. But there might be this intuitive knowing in you, or an intuitive nudge in you, that you need to either have a boundary, or that you need to open up to this person more. Maybe you need to be more vulnerable with this person, and you are refusing to be vulnerable until they are vulnerable to you first. And so you're like stonewalling them and whatever. Or as I said, it could just be you need to have a boundary with them that you're just not upholding. You're allowing this person to walk all over you. Or maybe you feel this intuitive nudge that you need to temporarily really walk away from that person. There's a lot of things that your deeper knowing is trying to tell you, like, hey, right now, the action that we are taking towards this person is completely not aligned with the having of the relationship that we want. And I know I'm using a specific person example here because this does most commonly kind of play out with that very alive energy of a relationship dynamic. But what I'm talking about also applies to other manifestations. If you're manifesting stuff at work, and there's things you need to say or things you need to do that you're just not doing, like your intuition's telling you got to do something, but you're just refusing to because you're so terrified, that is also an example of you blocking some active inspired action that your deeper intuition is like begging you to take. So this can apply to a lot of different scenarios, not just people, is what I'm trying to say. But this leads me to my next point, and this is the kind of simple tool that I want to give you that's going to help you to know if there is some inspired action that you are supposed to be taking and you're not taking, but also if you do have a really strong urge to take an action, but you're not sure if that action is inspired or if it's just coming from your anxiety about wanting your desire so bad. This is just the simple question that you can ask yourself. Before you take any action in the 3D, simply ask yourself, what part of me is this action coming from? Because remember, what manifests is what our dominant energy state is. That's what it means by the state of being that you're in. Whatever your dominant state of being is, that's what manifests. So when you ask yourself, what part of me or which state within me is this action coming from? Like, for example, a really common one that is not inspired action, but everyone likes to think that it is inspired action, is, let's say, again, you're manifesting a specific person, you haven't heard from this person in weeks, and you're like really missing them, and you're like really anxious because it's like, oh my God, I've been manifesting them for weeks and I haven't heard from them for weeks, and oh my God, I think I should just text them first. When you feel that anxiety of like, oh, I should just text them and ask them how they're doing or whatever, when you're feeling that and you're feeling that pull to take an action, it's like, oh, I just got to reach out to them. I have to reach out to them. Pause before you take that action and ask yourself, which state is this desire for action coming from? And obviously in the example I'm giving you right there, it's coming from a state of lack. It's coming from a state of, I don't have this. I feel really just insecure, lacking, just like I don't have it. And I'm wanting to take action from the desperate state of I don't have it. And when you clearly see that, I hope it becomes obvious to you to not act on that action, because that's not inspired action, the wish fulfilled. That's inspired action in the wish non-fulfilled. So if you would like to continue moving in that direction of, yes, I'd love to take action from non-fulfillment, so obviously that's the thing I should do. If you want to do that, that's fine, but you're not going to get the fulfillment version of the manifestation. You're going to get more and more non-fulfillment when you take action from non-fulfillment. It just keeps building momentum. But here's a different example that is nuanced. And this is also why I'm saying inspired action is incredibly nuanced and very maybe complex depending on you and what your patterns are and what your situation is. Because here's the next example I can give you that can show you the nuance of this. Let's say in this example, this is another specific person example where you're manifesting a specific person. And let's say you have a tendency to be really afraid of opening up to this person. Like you're so afraid, you want their approval so badly that you're kind of afraid to say anything to them. And even though you want them so badly, even though you want them to choose you, you want them to talk to you, you want them to acknowledge you, your genuine energy towards them tends to be one of fear and avoidance because you are just so afraid of them seeing the real you and potentially rejecting you. So from that state, there is this desire to take action, but the action is never ever let them see you sweat. Never ever let them see you be bothered. Never talk to them and tell them that you have feelings. Don't even ever reach out to them at all. Like they have to always message you first. And it's like very strict rules. Like that kind of action, again, when it comes back to this question of like what state is this action coming from, this kind of action that's obsessed with control and not wanting to show vulnerability, not wanting to open up, not wanting to reveal any fractures within yourself that you perceive could get you rejected, that kind of desire for action is coming again from a different version of a state of insecurity. It's an avoidant state of insecurity. So obviously in that case, you should not be taking that action. Again, if any state that is a state of non-fulfillment wants you to do certain things, like the state tells you, again, don't ever let them see you sweat. Don't ever let them see you be vulnerable. Don't open up to them at all. They should prove it to you first. They have to you have to make sure everything's safe before you do anything with them. If that state of being is your dominant energy and it's telling you to obviously not take action towards them at all or don't be vulnerable at all, you obviously want to not do that. If it's telling you don't be vulnerable, the real action that you should be taking as your inspired action is obviously the opposite of that advice from that non-fulfilled state of being. You should be more open and vulnerable in the 3D perhaps. Again, this is nuanced case by case scenario, but maybe for you, you do need to take an action where you're being a lot more vulnerably open with this person in the 3D. So I know both of those examples were specific person examples, but just remember that that question applies to everything. The question of anytime you want to take an action, ask yourself, where is this action coming from? What part of me is this action coming from? What state within me is this action coming from? Because again, often, sometimes the right inspired action that you should be taking is the action that actually scares the crap out of you. The actions that feel very safe and familiar and just familiar and almost like home, those actions are probably not the actions you should be taking because those actions are typically aligned with your old story, your old self that's used to always behaving in a certain way towards your SP or just towards the world in general. There's just certain habitual actions that you are very used to taking, but I want you to challenge yourself because those new inspired actions, they are going to feel a little scary to you at first because they're not what you normally would have done. Your new self, the new self that has what it wants, the new self that is confident, that knows it's loved, that knows its fulfillment cannot be taken away by anything, that new you is going to take different actions in the 3D reality. It's just a part of the law. Certain actions spring from your old self, and other different actions spring from your new self. You can't really be your new self, but still be doing all your old bullshit in the 3D. Those two things cancel each other out. A real embodied state of being is whole in that the energy within you is one thing, and then outwardly it has a very particular expression, which means the energy you're embodying acts a certain way in the 3D quite naturally. But again, I get it that if at first those actions don't feel natural because there is a growing period, a little bit of growing pains. When you're getting into that new state, you're not used to what it feels like to take those new actions, and at first it's a little scary. But you have to put your fear to the back of the bus and say, I'm not going to let fear be my dominant state anymore, because when fear is my dominant state, I'm in lack. I'm in the I don't have it mode, and I'm trying to get it mode. And that's not where you want to be, obviously. So fear, you feel it, you accept it, you acknowledge it. I'm afraid. I'm afraid about doing this next action, if that's the case in that moment. And then you put the fear to the back of the bus and you decide, but this is who I am now. And this is who this person acts like. These are the kinds of things that they do. These are the actions that they take in their reality. This person doesn't hide. This person doesn't avoid reality. This person isn't trying to escape reality. This person isn't hoping that like everything just magically happens for them so that they don't ever have to change or actually do anything in their own life. So keep it simple and ask yourself, when you have a desire to take any sort of action in the 3D, just simply pause and ask yourself, where is the desire to take this action coming from? Or where is the knowing of this action? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from the knowing of fulfillment, or is it coming from the knowing of fear? And obviously, don't take any freaking action from the knowing of fear, from the state of fear. Don't believe fear. If you take action from fear, it just perpetuates that state even more. It creates the feedback loop. This is why, again, you can't be the new you who's fulfilled and embodied, but then be doing your old bullshit, because those two things don't align. The new you is creating a new momentum and cycle of feedback by the havingness is embodied, and then it takes a certain action that matches that havingness, that gets fed back into it, and then it's like, boom, you're on a roll. Reality is really creating itself now. Boom, 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 everything's coming together. Simply trust yourself through this process and be very patient with yourself as well, because again, this is nuanced for a lot of you, where if your old fear state is extremely powerful within you still, and it's extremely like it's got its grips on you, obviously it's not going to feel super easy to instantly jump into the new you and take action from it. So be very patient with yourself and know that sometimes the initial action that you take from having this can just be small. It can just be smiling at a stranger that normally you would never smile at, or just doing any action that you think like, okay, this is what the fulfilled, confident, totally loved version of me would do. Like, keep asking yourself that question. Like, what would the version of me that does have what I want, what would they do? What would I do if I'm really in that state? And then just have fun practicing with whatever inspired, intuitive actions come to you from that state. But what's most important is to first stop taking any actions that are coming from the fear state, the lack state. You've got to catch yourself, because a lot of you are not catching yourselves. You're just so used to your own bullshit all the time. You're just so used to the normalcy of your old ways of rationalizing your behavior that you don't even like pause and ask yourself, wait, this thing I'm about to do, is this from the wish fulfilled, or is this from my old crazy bullshit? You have to pause and ask that. And obviously, if the answer is yes, this action is coming from my craziness, my old story, do not take that action. Okay, this video is definitely gotten long enough. So we covered a lot of inspired action stuff today. Obviously, as I said in the beginning of the video, a lot of inspired action can just be super passive, like as I said, where it's just, you go to the mall, you didn't even know you were gonna meet somebody there you needed to meet, or you're gonna see your big person, or just like things would just randomly happen in this amazing way for you at the mall. That's definitely a part of this. But what I want you to start thinking about is that less passive inspired action. Like, again, what state are you really taking action from? Because that's gonna inform you a lot about whether you're really in the wish fulfilled or not. All right, this is enough for today. Please let me know your thoughts and your questions down in the comments below. I am happy to answer any questions that I feel would be good for a lot of people to hear. I might make another video about your question. So let me know what's coming up for you, and I will see you guys in my next video. All right, bye.